Okay, good morning. We are going to talk about how to write MSc dissertations or scientific papers. I suppose Professor Marzarura dealt with literature review. I'm going to focus on materials and methods. Let me admit someone. Okay. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can hear
yes,
you
sir.
clear.
Okay. So, how to write materials and methods section for the MSc dissertation. Probably when you have written your MSc dissertation, you may want to, because this is a scientific document, there is nothing to stop you from writing a scientific paper. So, after the dissertation, it may be important for you to proceed and write a scientific paper, because the techniques are the same. So on the materials and methods, it is important to note that scientific results should be reproducible. Let's suppose you have done your study, you have finished it, that study should be repeated. It can be repeated by somebody, and the results should be reproducible. If the methodology or the materials and methods have been well written, there should not be any serious variation. The other point is that for us to understand the results of the research, we should derive most of the information from how that study was conducted. So the materials and the methods serves as a key function, to understand the results obtained. So the materials and methods are actually the important section of a scientific document or your thesis. Now, the types of research investigations which you are going to embark on or which you are about to do are likely to fall within these broad areas. You could be doing field experiments where you grow crops, collect data, and so forth. You may also be doing laboratory experiments where your study is just confined to the laboratory. Or you could be doing surveys. Sometimes you may have a combination of those three in one study. It could be field plus laboratory, or it could be all of these three in one study, or they could be separate studies. So for each type of study, we want to see how it is written. Field experiments normally you are doing you are growing some crops, or it could be some plants in the field, and we have got plots. For those who deal with animals, probably the plots are the animals, I'm not sure. Or it could be laboratory experiments where you are dealing with experiments in the laboratory. Laboratory experiment, or you are conducting some interviews, collecting data from farmers. It's part and parcel of the materials and the methods. Whether you are in the laboratory, you are in the field, growing some crops. Now, we now want to focus on field experiments. Under materials and methods, what do we expect? The information which is key under field experiments. We expect you to write something on site description. Where was that study done? Right? It's very important. Name of site, state the geographical coordinates of that site where the experiment was done. Soil types. On what type of soil was that experiment carried out? Because this could have an influence on the type of results which you obtain. Rainfall distribution and total during the period of the experiment. So we expect you to have some rain gauges where you collect, or there should be a meteorological station nearby. Temperature data is also needed just to characterize the site, so that we can have a proper understanding about your treatments. The other key issue which is expected when you are reporting materials and methods under field experiments category, the experimental designs. State the experimental design and the number of replications which were used in that study. This should be clearly stated. Describe and state the number of treatments which you used, probably in order to answer your questions, research questions, or to address your objectives. Plot sizes. What was the gross plot, the net plot size? All of these should be stated.
Hello, Doc. Sorry, I cannot see the full view of your presentation from my side here.
What
I don't
about
know.
others?
From my end, I can see the whole presentation. I can see the presentation.
Or maybe what you can do is there are three small dots on your docs screen. Then you press that is the three dots. Then you view full screen.
I've tried that. All right, it's fine, but it's not responding. It's okay.
It is not. Can you go to at Stanford Mabasa 1? Google that. Can you do that?
To Google,
At Stanford Mabasa, you can go to live YouTube.
okay.
You can get me on live YouTube.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about the plot size, the gross plot, and the net plot. We also want to report under materials and methods for field experiments, the land preparation which was done at the site, fertilizers applied, basal, and the top dressing fertilizers. When we report this information, we should mention the chemical composition of the fertilizers and the rates. We should also state the plant spacing which was used, weed control methods, insect pest control methods, if you use the herbicides, if you use the insecticides, what rates, and so forth. Whether there was supplementary irrigation, how many millimeters were supplied. All that information should be included. That is for field experiments. For the survey, those who may do surveys, probably we may also want information on the site information, survey design, whether you did some stratified sampling, and also the farmer typologies, groups of farmers with similar characteristics. You may group them together so that when you do your analysis, you consider this. We may be interested in soil types, agroecological zones, whatever. We may also want this. If you were collecting some samples, use of quadrats, use of traps, you could have used the questionnaire. You give details. Whether you use the questionnaire, you put an appendix for the questionnaire. You can't put it within the materials and methods because the questionnaire is too big, so you can refer it as an appendix. So that is the information under survey, which is key. Now, as for laboratory methods, we may want details of instruments and the procedures which were used. They should be properly described. Chemicals which were used to make solutions, if there were any. All these should be stated under laboratory methods. Measurements. It's a very important area. Let me admit somebody. So measurements, what parameters did you get, or what sort of measurements were done in this study? And probably you captured this data on Excel sheets. Now we will move to data analysis. Anyway, before we move to data analysis, there may be a section on ethical issues. Probably you are dealing with animals. There are some ethical issues, or it could be surveys. There could be some ethical issues which you may state. This is an important section again on the materials and methods. How was the data processed and analyzed? This has to be clearly stated. And of course, the way you analyze your data, probably it's linked to the questions which are being addressed by your research project. Procedures to check whether the data was suitable to be analyzed using the ANOVA, whether you took some procedures, you state those things. Any data which had to be transformed before you did the analysis of variance, but sometimes you may have to transform data, especially count data. Or probably analysis of variance was not appropriate. You ended up using non-parametric methods. You also state those issues. What statistical software did you use to conduct your analysis? We have got plenty of packages. We have got GeniStat, SPSS, SAS, Minitab, R, Sigma Plot. Now recently we have Jamovi and JASP. Jamovi and JASP, I think, are part of R. If you do not want to program or to write programs. So you state all of these things. And with that, that will be the end of your materials and the method section. You end up with the data analysis. So what we are going to do, I will show you probably 3 good samples of papers where we are going to pick some of these issues so that you know where to place some of the issues when you actually write. I know it's easy to talk about writing, but it is the actual writing itself which is a challenge. It has been easy. Also, what I have been saying, do this, do that, do that. I mean, do all these things, but doing it is something different. One of the issues which is important is the language, because we use English language. Try to be simple and direct. The other point is that when we write, we should be mindful of the terms which we are using. Let me admit somebody. We should be worried about the tense. Those who are writing in the past, things have actually occurred in the past. So don't write as if things are happening now. I know when you are writing a proposal, you use a certain tense because you say you want to do this. And when you have done it, you have to change your tense. So let me go to the scientific paper. Can you see this title? Hello?
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, you can see the title. What I'm going to do on this paper, we'll move to the materials and the methods. And I'm going to highlight some of the issues which we have been talking about so that you see those things in action or on paper at least. You can see this, probably you know the student of this paper. And you may know one of the supervisors. So this is a very good paper. Right. So this is the area which we want. Section 2, materials and methods. Let me admit somebody. Okay, vamwe vakupinda lecture yakupera. Right, we are here at the materials and methods. Right? So the author started by describing the experimental sites. This was an on-farm. The season was stated, and the site was mentioned and its location, and it is in the eastern part of Zimbabwe. Also the agroecological region, natural region 2, ecological region 2, rainfall was also stated. Also this information that there is part of natural region 3. And the description of the season, November to March, when the experiment was done. The soils were stated: sandy soil with clay, organic carbon content, all this. And a table was inserted. In addition, maps. Maps were included. Again, this is supplementary information about soils. We have got 2 sites. Dendenyore and Ushe, with different, specifics concerning pH, total nitrogen, etc. So that is typical site information for a field experiment. And if you are right, and if your project is about field experiment, we expect you to do this in your materials and methods. Check also the numbering, which is used, but at the moment it's not important. I mentioned earlier on that for field experiments, experimental design, in this case, a split plot design was used. Where they have tillage as the main plot, They also have cropping systems. Probably tillage is 1, cropping systems is 2. Then they also have mulch. You know, it's quite a complicated experiment. And this was laid in a randomized complete block design. They go on to show the field layout in Appendix 1. So the map or the plot positions, they are shown in Appendix 1. We also talked about the plot sizes. They have included them. 6 times 7 meters. They also stated in full the treatments, and they have provided a table. So these are the treatments. So there are basically 3 main treatments: tillage, reduced and conventional. There's also mulch treatment, bare and mulched. Then cropping. Treatment. They state what they used, you know, cowpea and the maize, SC513, CBC2, another cowpea variety. Plant spacing is also reported. Again, this is the plot size, maize spacing, and so on, all these details. Compound D fertilizer. Don't just say compound D when you are reporting, if you are dealing with the field experiments. You can see compound D. They then write the details about the rate and also the nutrients, so that we know what compound D is supplying. Then ammonium nitrate, we also know that it's supplying nitrogen. All these technical details. Then when it comes to measurements, this is quite a lot of measurements. It's a section on its own. Measurements were taken 4, 8, 12, and 16 weeks after planting maize, and then 2, 6, 10, and 14 weeks after planting cowpea. Let me try to admit somebody. Right, measurements, very important. So they took soil bulk density and soil water measurements, right? And of course they give details of how they were sampling. They also took leaf area index, probably for the maize and cowpea. Then crop, you can see a lot of details. What they were doing with biomass. They also calculated the land equivalent ratios, whatever they were using. But we are interested in measurements. They also measured crop water use. They calculated water use efficiency. Then they also had some probably laboratory studies, analysis of soil organic content, and the last bit is statistical analysis. So in this case they used GeniStat, and they did the analysis of variance to assess the treatment effects. And this is the probability range which was used. And this is the information from a typical field experiment. Right. So maybe I'll go to another paper before we forget. Probably you know Dr. Mbanyele. He worked with us briefly in this department. He was supervised by our Vice Chancellor, Prof. Mafumo. And he wrote this paper, which I think is quite interesting. You may have a look at it to see how the materials and methods were written. It's very simple and straightforward. So let me look for another paper. Probably you may be interested to know that, the first paper which we looked at was from a DPhil student, but this paper is from an MSc student, Talent Namashevi. She did exactly what you are doing, an MSc research project. After doing the MSc research project, she wrote this paper and submitted it to the Crop Protection Journal, which is quite a powerful journal. And this is part of a MSc work. This should motivate us actually from this paper. So let us go to the materials and methods, which was written by one of us, MSc candidate, who was an MSc student here. So under materials and methods, let me admit somebody. So we are here. So site. So field experiments were carried, the seasons are also important. This was done for 2 seasons. 5 smallholder farmers in Goromonzi, Mashonaland East. So she went on to describe the site using Vincent and Thomas, and he stated the rainfall which is normally obtained under those conditions. But these are the rainfall figures which were obtained during these 2 seasons. So it's part of characterizing the site. Also, temperatures were reported here. And the soils. Soils were described. And she gives the general information about cropping systems in this area, which is part of site description. Then she came to experimental design. Where the design was stated, you can see this was a split plot design. And of course, she mentions the factors. where she had cropping systems and nitrogen fertilization. So 8 treatments were tested across 5 farms. Quite interesting. So she describes all the treatments. And please remember this measurement, the measurements. This could be the fields or a plot. This is the field. Then crop management, things like spacing. We expect spacing, planting dates, this could be planting dates. Then the varieties, maize variety used, then the cowpea variety which was used, it's also stated, and the spacing. These are the fertilizer rates. Please note that the elements are actually being reported so that we know what was applied. Anyway, to understand this, we go to the table so that it becomes clear. These are the treatments. This is the, because if you write the treatments in a table, then probably it becomes clear, because you want your readers to follow what you are doing. Then another section which is important is the measurements. Here the student was mainly interested in with the measurements. So this was the weed work. So she states what she was doing in measuring the weeds. These are the things which she was, these are part of the measurements or parameters which were being used. Then what is interesting is the data analysis section, which was, it's a separate section. This one states that data were checked for normality by visual inspection. She also used the Shapiro-Wilk test, and there was log transformation of data. She used the R package. So she stated the statistical methods used, and it should be clear what was going on. Also, use of the ANOVA and the ARA package. So we stop here on this paper. So what we're trying to explain starts from materials and methods. What is encouraging is that this is data from one of our MSc students. She did not only write the thesis, but she wrote a paper out of the thesis. In fact, she wrote 2 papers out of the thesis. So I'll move on to the last paper. Coming. Yeah, I'm on a lecture right now. This one, point of no return, rehabilitating degraded soils for increased crop productivity on smallholder farms in eastern Zimbabwe. This one was written by Dr. Nezomba and his team. You can see the general is Geoderma. So let us go to the materials and methods. I will do this one. This will be the last example. Study site. So if it is a field experiment, you need to describe the site. So the study was carried out between 2009 up to 2012. These are the sites, then the location, geographical references, Goto and so on in Wedza. So they describe the natural regions, natural region 2 and 3. These are the typical rainfall the rainfall pattern and the season between November to March. So site description. is important. Again, they use the reference Vincent and Thomas. It's an old reference, doesn't matter, but that is the reference, which can describe the sites very well. They talk about the soils, the soils are described. And of course, they describe the farming system, that the maize is dominant, probably followed by groundnut and cowpeas. So please note the kind of information which is supposed to occur under the site. And note that the language, it is in the past tense. The study was carried out, it's in the past. Now, if we go to section 2.2, these scientists, they did what they described as participatory research methods that included focus group discussions, key informant interviews, and a community meeting were employed to investigate farmers' knowledge of degraded soils. So this was like an interview, right? So this is like, it's a survey rather, sorry. It's a survey which involved interviewing farmers, 30 farmers, 15 men and 15 women. They also used farmer typologies developed by Mtambanengwe and Mafumo, right? Or they grouped farms, what they call the typology is recognized as resource endowed, group 1, resource intermediate, RG2, and resource constrained, RG3. So they grouped these farms, took information on probably soil fertility, talking to farmers. So you could say this was like a survey, right? Then they also did some field site, soils were sampled, so it's like a survey as well, where they collected soil samples. And this bit is now a field experiment. So they go on to tell us what they did. They have their plots, their treatments described under this section. Here they have treatments being described. We can't go through this. Here they describe the fertilizers. Here they talk of establishing legumes because they wanted to improve soil fertility using legumes, indigenous legumes. Here they are, here they talk of sampling, where they are harvesting 1 square meter quadrats. Probably they are taking biomass. So this table is their treatments. What happened in year 1, year 2, and year 3. This one looks like field experiment again, where they are growing maize under different treatments. And they have 2 sides. And they have shown the rainfall which was received in 3 seasons. Measurements. They took grain and cob in these plots. So this is part of measurements at physiological maturity. Then they also did some measurements on soil microbiomass, basal respiration, and total carbon. This is like laboratory, I think. Yeah, pakafiwa up. A lot of things were done here. Then data analysis. They describe what they did, analysis of variance, mainly analysis of variance. Used the Tukey test. They also used these models. Okay, they did not state the software, but this is what they did under analysis. So we stop here. So you can see this one is a bit involving on the materials and methods. A lot of things were done, but it's under one report. So I think this is it. I'll probably end up with a summary. I hope it's clear from wherever you are. So, some of the most important things on the materials and the methods. Please note the experimental site. Location. Specify the geographic location, including the country, state, province, and the specific site. As I have indicated, showing you the written papers. Climate, the climate of the region, including average temperature, rainfall, growing season. Like some authors were stating, they grew the crop from November up to, is it March or May? March, up to March. Soil details, the chemistry of the soil. So this is part of site description. Whatever you do in the experiment, this is the plant material. Plant material which you used. Then what is also key is the experimental design. Specify the experimental design, randomized complete block design, split plot, etc. Treatments, clearly outline treatments, factors investigated. Replication, state these replications. Field preparation and management. Land preparation, these are part of the things which were done in the experiment. Fertilization, state chemical composition of fertilizers, irrigation, weed control, etc. Planting and growth conditions, planting dates are important, planting density, and the growth conditions. Was it a field or a glass house work? Data collection or measurements. What data did you collect? Yield, plant height, leaf area, measurement techniques described, if the instruments used, and so on. Timing of measurements, were you doing it after every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, etc. Statistical analysis, statistical tests indicate what you did. Did you do ANOVA, t-test, correlation analysis, levels of significance? These are important. Ethical considerations, if you dealt with the animals, you state those things, but probably you are not dealing with animals, I'm not sure. Now the other things to remember this is now art. It may not be science. This is this area here. Coming, we need clarity and yeah, I'm on lecture. Yeah, I'm lecturing. Yeah, we need clarity and where consciousness, conciseness, sorry, right, clear, and concise manner. I mean, it's easy to say, but to do it is something else. Probably I am speaking from an advantageous position where I can just say you should be clear, you should be concise. But if I was to write a scientific paper and it was reviewed by other people, then they also state this. Detail, provide sufficient detail for others to replicate your experiment. Can we repeat your experiment? We can only repeat it if the materials and the methods are well written. Consistency, use of consistent terminology and units throughout the section. You try to be consistent, not to vary certain things. Objectivity, avoid subjective statements or interpretations. Again, we should avoid, emotional statements within this section, or any section for that matter. I think with this, we come to the end of this short lecture. Any questions? Hello?
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for the for the information. It was very much detailed, short but very detailed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean,
but I want.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was just wondering, do you have another example related to product development, research on product development? How we can structure our materials and methods?
On the product development?
Yes.
Yeah, we can organize information on that. But your project, is it not research?
Yes, it's research utilizing waste to produce technologies that can be used for sustainable agriculture.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we can organize that information which you want. But for scientific reporting, you need this.
Okay.
I showed you examples of a paper written by an MSc. Isn't that encouraging?
It's very, very encouraging.
Yeah, which means what you are doing is very important. It can end up not only as a thesis, but it can end up in a research journal. If you want, you can make it published.
Okay.
So, if you write to publish, your MSc thesis is going to be one, no doubt about it. So let us aim to sort of publish our work And it is possible. I mean, we have given you that example. There are many examples actually, where the MSc thesis had to be published. But what I should emphasize is that we just need to practice. This is a practical thing. So if you practice, you make it, you can make this thing perfect. And for your own information, we are all caught in this area, whether they are students or, or lecturers. Writing is very difficult, but it can be done. We can do it if we practice. So when you write and interact with your supervisors, this is when you can improve on those points. I have just indicated the areas where probably the supervisors will be, what sort of information they will be looking for. Let's say for the site, they may state we need this. Maybe you may get discouraged when you see a lot of red on your document. Probably they are trying to let you know that we need that sort of information. What is just needed in writing is we need to practice. The first documents may not be perfect, but as you go on, you will be in charge of the writing. And sometimes I've worked with several students, I know there are 2 students. Hello?
There's someone who is unmuted.
Okay. Yeah. So what I am saying is that using our MSc documents, let us not underestimate them. We can produce good work provided we are following the proper procedures. And of course, it's one step at a time as we move. And I mean, we can become good writers as we practice. I know there are 2 students who were extremely good. There's one who is already doing his PhD. He hasn't finished his PhD, but already he has 16 papers. Can you imagine that? One student from this university. So when he finishes the PhD, the university where he is, they want to retain that student as a lecturer from UZ. So you can become good writers and exceed the lecturers actually. Because it depends, you could be talented in that direction, and we should nurture that talent so that you can become good writers. So I think this is it for this.
Sorry,
session.
Doc. Another question.
I can send you the video if you want it.
Yeah,
Of the
may you
recorded
send the
lecture.
video, Doc?
Huh?
We do need the video. May you send it?
Yeah, I'll send it on this on WhatsApp later.
Right. And also, Doc, I have a question.
Yes.
That let's say you have 2 or 3 objectives that you need to test using different experiments. On writing the materials and methods, do you combine the materials and methods for the 2 experiments, or you write 2 sets of materials and methods for each experiment? How do you go about it?
You can just do proper numbering. For objective 1, you put a certain numbering. Your materials and methods, what is it? Section 3.
Yes.
Yeah, so it may be 3.1 or 3.2, depending on what you did. Or you can look at the Nezomba paper, which had a lot of things. You know, I discussed the Nezomba et al. Paper on the materials and methods.
Yes.
Which had survey, field work, and so on, laboratory work. These are different objectives under materials and methods.
Doc, are you able to share with us those papers that you were discussing? Probably just for
Yes,
guidance.
Yes, I can post them on the WhatsApp, or the examples I've used.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll post them. Another issue. Zvakafanana nekutrena munhu kumhanya kana bhora handiti. Unogona kuudza munhu kuti unofanira kurirova wakadai, unodai. But kuzozviita kwacho kunonetsa, handiti munozviziva.
It's okay, Doc. I tinozoita tichibata as we go as well.
Yeah, saka zvoda practice.
So that no
Kana referee anogona kutaura zvimwe zvinhu zvinonetsa kuita futi ka. Saka zvotongoda practice. And ndo area iri open, munhu ane talent rekunyora richaonekwa ipapa. Rotobuda chete. Kuti this one uyu hasi wedu uyu ndo is a different person. Regai aite zvake nezvaari kuita. Saka vamwe vari skilled ndechekuda zvirimo mumusoro mavo, vanongoda platform chete, then they take off. But zvongoda practice. So I will send you this part.
Thank you, Doc.
Saka mese hapana vasipera. Because vamwe vakaita miss the lectures.
I'm not. We are not sure whether all of us are on the platform because we are different. We are from different classes.
All right. Kana paine vanenge vakaita miss, I mean, we can always engage them at an appropriate time now. munozokuvataurira. Okay. Ya, ndataura zvakwana handiti.
Yes, Doc.
Ya, tasinza tasibata Doc.
Mazvibata ka mutry mune muchiweka nemasupervisor muchiningirika kwete kuunza zvinhu last minute. It's a process. Hati mazvaona.
Yeah, it's okay.
Kunyange ukaunza 1 page chete mukangoveka kuti site inofanira kugadziriswa zvakati mopedza nezvesaiti. Muri pamamaterials and methods. Moenda experimental design mopedza. Matreatments acho mopedza. Field management mopedza muchidaro. Kusvika masvika kudata analysis and so forth. Then materials and methods yobva yaita stand on its own. Zvobva zvaita musha. All right.
Thank you, Doc. Prof.